Thank you so much, Professor Flanagan, for doing this interview with us. And today's topic, I know that we're going to touch on the new Georgia gun law that I do know that went into effect on July 1st. So if you could kind of give us an overview of what the new law entails.
Certainly. In fact, it's called the Business Security and Employee Privacy Act. This new gun law is Act number 801. That's from House Bill 89. There's several different parts of this new gun law. One, of course, dealing with making it against the law to entice or persuade someone to purchase a weapon for someone other than the person who's going to use it. Another part grants immunities to business owners and employers and whatnot that deal with the national and state government on security issues, homeland security and things of that. And, of course, the one that most of us are concerned with is that part of the act that deals with licensed concealed permit holders carrying weapons in different parts of the state. The new law that went into effect expands the rights of those individuals who already have or are going to obtain a permit to carry a concealed weapon. Georgia doesn't license the weapon; it licenses the holder of the weapon. And if you are eligible, you of course can carry a concealed weapon. Before there was a certain number of places you could not carry a concealed weapon. Now with this new law, there are more locations that a licensed permit holder can carry that concealed weapon.
Okay, now I know that the law allows those licensed owners to carry weapons, of course, that are concealed, into state parks, city buses, and even restaurants that serve alcohol.
Yes.
Now, do you think that the passing of this new gun law, of course, of concealed weapons, do you think it will be a step in the direction of allowing them in other arenas such as sporting events and other public gatherings?
It might. That remains to be seen. For a number of years, Georgia would not allow the use of the carrying of a concealed weapon in state parks, state historic sites, and things of that nature. And they allowed the employers of most businesses to prohibit individuals from carrying their own weapon in their car on a parking lot that's owned by that employer. However, Georgia has looked into this, and based upon their conclusions of reading studies, they've determined that that would not be something that would be needed to carry over anymore, and that we can expand the places where you can carry concealed weapons. So now we can carry them in certain public venues, certain public places. If it continues in the same manner, and studies have shown that it has not increased the risk to individuals or has not increased gun-related crimes and violence, we may see an increase in the usage of concealed weapons, possibly to other public events. As it is right now, certain public events, of course, you cannot carry concealed weapons, even under the new law, such as a public gathering, and of course the code section tells you what that is. It's, for instance, athletic or sporting events, churches, church functions, political rallies, publicly owned, operated buildings, and things of that nature. We may see that in the future, but that we'll have to wait a number of years for that. But I can see bypassing this law and now allowing it in state parks, historic sites, and places like that. Yes, that might indeed occur, depending upon the outcome of this particular law and how it plays out over the years.
Now, I heard you say earlier that in Georgia you do not have to have your weapon license.
No, you don't.
Do you think that's a good thing for the weapon? Not.
Well, I think it's more important. The individual is more important than the weapon.
Okay.
For instance, whether an individual has a weapon, a semi-automatic character that has 15 rounds or has 6 rounds, I don't think that's as important as whether you have a stable individual or an individual with a felony record or someone who's already has a history of violence or mental instability or something like that. Georgia obviously believes, the legislature believes that it's more important to take care of the individual rather than it is to register the actual firearm. As we know that even in those places where they have total firearm bans, people still have weapons. Because the criminal mind, they make their mind up, they're going to get some sort of weapon, they get it regardless. So that's why just registering the weapon, weapons are stolen all the time. But if you register the individual, you know where the individual is, for the most part. And they're not as easily, it's hard to conceal a person, harder to conceal a person than it is a particular weapon.
Okay, my next question is, I know a lot of city officials say that with this new gun law, it will make criminals think twice about getting involved in crimes that involve guns, and especially in public places, being that there could be someone there with a concealed weapon. Do you agree with that?
To some extent. There are certain elements in the criminal elements out there. It won't matter what type of laws you have. Some of those individuals act only on impulse, no self-control, and the fact that they will have access to a weapon legally or otherwise, or illegally for the most part, that's why they're criminals, they will use it regardless. And however, they may just use it on themselves, those who may be involved in illegal activities where they think a weapon is necessary to protect themselves or their money or their goods. It may have no impact upon them. But this law may have an impact, and I think it will, on the general public. It could be not so much to the extent that the public will not be preyed on as much, but during the course of any type of crime where a weapon is used, there's a possibility that that crime may be halted and stopped at a particular point in time sooner than it would have been if the general public were not armed, such as going into a restaurant or other public facility and using a weapon on someone. The individual may not think about it, but an armed citizen may prevent more harm by stopping that perpetrator. Mm-hmm. And whether or not someone actually thinks about it, well, there are some individuals that actually will look about and will prey on who they think would be the weakest, those who are not going to give them a hard time. Mm-hmm. A bully is not going to go up and try to pick on the biggest person they can find for fear that they're going to get knocked around themselves. They will try to pick on the weakest person, the one they can get away with bullying. Mm-hmm. Well, those who commit gun crimes, if they're going to use it in acts of violence or robbery or things of that nature, will probably do the same. Mm-hmm. They will look upon someone they think they can prey upon, and they will weigh the odds. Mm-hmm. And in that respect, it may have some sort of an impact, positive impact.
Now, I do also know that with this new gun law, of course, those who go in restaurants that serve alcohol, the law says that they cannot, those who have concealed weapons, they cannot be served alcohol, which is understandable. But how will the bartender or how will the restaurant know?
They won't.
So, I mean, is that safe? Is it?
I don't know. That is a question, well, yet to be asked. How do you know anyone that goes into a restaurant or the place that serves alcohol, how do you know the people that you are serving are not convicted felons out on parole, or they're a parole violee, they've made a violation, or they've done something wrong? How do you know they're not child molesters that you're serving? You don't know any of that stuff. So I doubt that a bartender or a server will know whether the individual they're serving has a concealed weapon. Mm-hmm. However, if any patron sees that concealed weapon, or any employee sees that concealed weapon, that is a crime. If they see it and this person is consuming alcohol.
Right. Then
you call the police as you would any other type of offense, and that person will be charged with a misdemeanor crime and be prosecuted as any other citizen would for a misdemeanor.
But otherwise, everything is based on the honor system.
Well, it's based upon the fact that knowledge is not there, and I doubt that anyone's going to start asking you, are you carrying a concealed weapon? Because if you have a right to carry it, it's no one's right to know it, unless, of course, you're being asked questions by a law enforcement officer as part of their investigative duties. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it's no one's business. So, yeah, will that create problems? It could. Don't know yet. We will wait and see.
And my final question is, do you think this new law will cause gun crimes to rise, or do you think they'll fall, or do you think that it will have an effect at all?
Well, I think it'll have an effect, and initially maybe we won't see it. It may very well have an effect of reducing certain types of gun crimes. As far as the criminal element dealing with illegal substances and whatnot between and among themselves, it may make no difference. But as far as the general population being preyed upon, I think it'll have some sort of difference. It's worth a try. For instance, Washington, D.C. has found out with their restrictive gun law after 1976, it was almost impossible for anyone to obtain a gun, yet they were known as the murder capital of the United States for years, and their gun crime was phenomenal. So obviously banning the guns does the opposite of what people wanted to occur. So the question is, by allowing more concealed weapons, will that bring the crime down? Well, obviously that's what they're hoping for, at least protect those law-abiding citizens from criminals. Will it make a difference? I think it will. Will it be enough to measure? If so, I don't think it'll be for a while yet.
Thank you so much, Professor
You're welcome.
Flanagan. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a part of this interview.
My pleasure.